Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today let us know the difference between strong, weak and non-electrolytes. First of all, what do you mean by an electrolyte? So if you define electrolyte as a metal or an element or a substance that passes electricity through it, then your answer would not be so specific. Because if you say it as a metal or an element or something like that, it would become a conductor, right? Why would it be an electrolyte? An electrolyte is a compound which, when dissolved in water, will pass electricity through it. So it is basically in the liquid form, which means it is either in the aqueous form or in the molten state or a fused state. Only then it can pass electricity. So now, as I said, electrolyte. Now again, electrolyte is divided into three types, which is strong, weak and non-electrolytes. Now what do you mean by strong electrolytes? Like what type of compounds come in strong electrolytes? If the compound is having only or is made up of only ions, very important, only ions, then it is a strong electrolyte. Why? For example, let me take sodium chloride. When you split sodium and as sodium and chlorine, it will be Na plus and Cl minus, isn't it? Now Na is a positively charged or a cation and this is an anion. This is an anion. Now what is the bond formed between sodium and chlorine? It will be ionic bond. The bond formed between sodium and chlorine will be ionic bond. Now ionic bond means the bond is formed between the ions, means there is a charge. Now when there are opposite charges between two atoms, then the force, the electrostatic force between the two will be very strong. So it needs more energy to break the atoms. So because there are high number of ions too, they can easily pass the electricity. Okay, now there can be a question, you might get a question that solid sodium chloride, that is the common salt which we eat, it does not pass electricity. Why? We said that sodium chloride passes electricity and it is a strong electrolyte. Then why doesn't solid NaCl does not pass electricity? It is because to pass electricity, it needs to have free ions. That is, it should be mobile. There should be mobility of the ions. Whereas in a solid NaCl, mobility is not there, right? There are no freely moving ions, which is why they can't pass electricity. Which is why to pass electricity, as I said, it should be either in aqueous or molten state or fused state. Molten is nothing but fused. So this is an example. Sodium chloride is an example of strong electrolyte. Now what type of compounds, what all compounds come in strong electrolytes? All the ionic bonds, all the ionic compounds or electrovalent compounds, each and every one come under strong electrolytes. Why? Because they have free ions only when they are dissolved in water. And there is an exception. We know that in covalent bonds, electricity cannot be passed. Why? They are made up of molecules, not ions. Then still there is an exception. What are the two types of covalent bonds? Polar and non-polar. Now electricity can be passed through polar covalent, but it cannot be passed through non-polar. Why is that so? Because in polar compounds there is a large difference in the electronegativity, which is why they can conduct electricity, they can pass electricity. So now all the polar covalent compounds too are not strong electrolytes. It depends in those two. For example, hydrogen chloride HCl is a strong electrolyte, whereas ammonia NH3 is a weak electrolyte. Let's now go to weak electrolyte so you can understand why is that so. Now the compounds which come under weak electrolytes will have ions also and molecules also. What are polar covalent bond? Covalent bond is also called as molecular bond because the bond is between molecules, which is why they have molecules also. But there is also a presence of ions. But because there are molecules also, they would not pass the electricity as strong electrolytes like the ionic compounds, which is why they are weak electrolytes. So weak electrolytes have both ions and molecules. Because there is a presence of ions, they can conduct electricity, but it is not as compared to the strong electrolytes, it is comparatively less, which is why it is weaker electrolytes. Now for example, the same thing, polar covalent bonds, or some of the polar covalent bonds are also weak electrolytes like ammonia. Next we have non-electrolytes. Now what do you mean by non-electrolytes? Same thing, the compounds which do not pass electricity through them are non-electrolytes. Now what is the only type of bond or the only type of compounds which are left? Non-polar covalent bonds, right? Now non-polar covalent bonds have only molecules, they have no charged ions. There is no charge, there is no possibility to pass the electricity. Because they have only molecules, they cannot pass electricity, right? That is why non-polar covalent compounds are non-electrolytes. For example, you have carbon tetrachloride and methane CH4 is also an example. Okay, you might get it in the form of give reasons or identifying what type of electrolyte it is, or like why is that so, why is it a weak electron, or why, as I said, NaCl. Normally NaCl, it is an ionic bond. Normally if they ask you what type of bond is there between sodium and chlorine, it is a ionic bond itself. It is an electrovalent bond. But why is common salt not passing electricity? As I said, there are no free ions. So the same type of thing might come, and the reason is actually going to be the same for all that type of questions. Either there are no free ions, or either they are free ions. That is only going to be the reason. So I hope there is no confusion in this. Let me just recap. Electrolytes are basically the compounds, don't forget to write the word compounds, which when dissolved in water can pass electricity through it. They should be either in aqueous or molten or fused state. And there are three types of electrolytes, which are strong, weak, and non-electrolytes. Now, strong electrolytes have ions, only ions. They have only ions, and all the ionic compounds are the examples for strong electrolytes. And for weaker ones, there are both ions and molecules present in them, and the polar covalent bonds, which is an exception in covalent compounds to pass electricity, are the examples. But still there are only few which are weak, whereas few like hydrogen chloride, that is HCl, are strong electrolytes because it depends. Then we have non-electrolytes. Here don't forget to write only, okay, they are made up of only molecules. They have only molecules, which is why they cannot pass electricity. Example, carbon tetrachloride and methane. So I hope you understood this topic. Feel free to ask questions in the comment box below. Definitely I'll reply for your doubts. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you like it. Please do like, share and subscribe. Thank you.